right. Hello, everybody, and welcome to day 2 of the Local Marketing Strategy Challenge. So if you guys weren't on day 1, I highly encourage you to go back and watch that. Day 1 is really going to set the foundation for your marketing plan for 2021. Before we can dive into next year, we really need to take a look at this past year. So again, if you haven't watched day 1, still happy to have you here, but I really want you to go back to day 1 after this is over and do the homework that is listed in that challenge. So I am going to post in the comments a link to the Google Drive folder that you guys are going to be able to use to get all of the documents. Instead of posting all of the various documents, I just want to give you guys an easy folder that you can use. So I'm going to be posting that in the comments right now. Boom. Hello, hello. Happy to have you guys here with me today. Okay, so for day 2, we are going to cover a couple of different things, but the very first thing that we need to do is set our growth goals. So I'm going to go ahead and open the document in that folder titled Benchmarks and Product Channel Grid. So if you guys want to open that in the folder, that is what we're going to go through first. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen with you guys now. As always, I want you guys to post your questions. Also post the answers to these as we go through so others can see what your goals are or what you're choosing for your business, and it may inspire them to think about things a little bit differently. So don't be scared, just go ahead, hop in the comments and really share what you're putting together in this plan. So with these documents, I'd highly encourage you to print them out. If you can't print them out, you could always use something like Adobe Reader or get a PDF that will allow you to actually edit these boxes. Or you could just take the concepts from these documents and just write them down on a whiteboard or on paper. It's really up to you, as long as we go through the steps that are necessary for you to make this plan. So the first document we're going to be going over is how will you sell and grow? Okay. So the first thing that we need to know in terms of how we're going to sell and how we're going to grow is, what are you trying to grow and how much do you want to grow? So in terms of what we're actually going to be trying to grow, there are 3 different options that you will see on that document. The first is unit, the second is revenue, and the third says subs. So the subs stands for subscribers or subscriptions, and that could be related to recurring revenue, either monthly recurring revenue, yearly recurring revenue. If you have something with a recurring revenue option, that is what that is dictating. That is the section that we're going to be going over first. So on the left side, you'll have product, service, and offer. So you can write in whatever that means to your business. So if you actually have clear-cut offers already defined, that's what you're going to write down, because obviously if you've got an offer, that's what you're actually trying to sell. If you don't have real offers yet, then simply write down the products or the services that you have or that you are trying to sell. Maybe you're dropping something from last year, whatever that means to your business, fill that in on the left side. So when we take a look at units, that could be number of customers, it could be number of sales, it could be number of members, it could be number of contracts, it could be number of free trials, but it is not a revenue goal, it's a unit goal. So if that is the thing that you want to focus on growing, then you can write down how many units of each one of those you would like to sell under that units column. So you do not have to have all 3 of these. You can choose just one, but maybe there are different measures for different products and services that you have. And if that's the case, you can go ahead and plug those in. So revenue, that's going to be related directly to your sales. It could be your net sales. It could be the average contract value or average purchase value that you are selling of these individual products and services. And then, like I said before, subscription, that could be monthly recurring revenue, or that could be your annual recurring revenue. So in terms of right and wrong, is there a right decision or a wrong decision here? Ultimately, there's not. It's going to come down to you, what you sell, and what your actual goals are. So I think a lot of people assume that everyone should have a revenue goal. And while it's great to have a revenue goal, that may not be what you want to focus on. Different businesses have different profit margins, and it could be that your revenue doesn't actually indicate how much money you're bringing home or how much profit you are making. So that may not be the primary thing you focus on, but ultimately by choosing the right goal here, you should be increasing your overall revenue. Again, if that's the single figure that you want to focus on, that's totally fine. But any of those numbers listed, those are all going to help you achieve that same goal. So I'm going to go ahead and pull mine up and we'll kind of walk through this together. So for me, I would have my products, services, and offers on the left side. And as I go through this, I really encourage you guys to do the same for your own business. This is time that you've set aside to work on your plans. Don't just listen, be an active participant while you're watching this. So again, you can always go back, rewind, go through the replay, but I'm actually going to be working through this with you. So you should absolutely have some time to look at these things. If you realize that you're missing some information that you need in order to do this really accurately, that's fine too. Do what you can do and then pull that data later and fill in the rest. So in terms of my products, services, and offers, the first thing that I'm going to list is local marketing mastery and local agency accelerator. So that's my 12-month membership or mentorship, I should say. And that is my coaching program, essentially. So for that program, is it that I want to increase that by units, revenues, or monthly recurring revenue? So I don't want to do monthly recurring revenue because this is an annual option. So they don't pay monthly. This is an annual thing. So that doesn't make sense for me. Revenue, that's not really what I want to focus on. So for me personally, units would be the number that I would choose. And I'm going to write down how many units I would like to sell in the next year. The second product or service I'm going to write down is my setup package. So our setup packages, this is where we ultimately go in, we do a strategy for someone and we set up everything they're going to need. So we'll set up their high level account, we'll set up their funnels, usually 2 funnels, we'll do all of their email and text campaigns, we'll set up everything in terms of their sales pipeline and their sales process, help them with any videos that are required. So after we've got that done, we set up all their ads, set up their ad account. So it's really a start to finish kind of thing. It's also not going to make sense for subscribers or subscriptions because, again, that is a one-time thing, sometimes a 2-time thing. However, I do have an ongoing consulting option that goes with that, but I'm going to list that separately because my goal there is going to be different. So in terms of setup packages, I'm also going to choose units, and I'm going to write down how many units I would like to sell. My third product or service is going to be the setup consulting. So that's for someone who, after they've had a setup done, they are equipped to manage it essentially, but they still don't feel 100% confident that they're always going to know the right thing. And so that's for someone that wants to do ongoing consulting with me to make sure everything's going well, make additional changes, get ideas, get feedback on other types of marketing that they're doing. So that is going to be a subscription goal for me. So I am going to write down how much I would like in that monthly recurring revenue from that specific service. The fourth product or service I'm going to write down is my agency services. And for agency services, we're also going to focus on those subscribers or that monthly recurring revenue. So I'm going to write down my monthly recurring revenue goal since those are ongoing monthly packages. So it makes sense for me to focus on that specific number. And then the fifth is going to be my courses. And for courses, I'm also going to focus on units. So I have a lot of different courses. So I'm not really going to focus on monthly recurring revenue because it's really going to depend on what's a good fit for someone and ultimately the course that they choose. I'm not necessarily going to focus on revenue, although I could for this specific service if I just want to say, I'd like to make $100,000 in 2021 from courses. I could write that down, or I could say, how many of these would I like to sell in the next 12 months? So hopefully that's given you a good idea of what you need to fill in on this section. So again, as you guys go through this, I really encourage you to fill these out, even write them down on paper. That's totally fine. Now we're going to look to the right side, and this is going to be how fast will you grow? So this is really just kind of an assumption. We're making some guesses here, and that's okay. We're acknowledging that these are guesses, that these are not necessarily concrete facts, but they are telling us what are our goals regarding these. And hopefully you're setting realistic goals. It's great to have what Chet Holmes would call big, hairy, audacious goals. And that's fine. I've had plenty of those in my life, and having those actually helps you achieve them. So don't set your sights too low, but just make sure that you're not necessarily setting yourself up for failure, saying that you're going to grow 1,000% in each one of these categories in the next year. So we break these down into hyper growth, rapid growth, steady growth, and mature growth. You can simply put a check mark in either one of these, and ultimately that's going to depend on what you did last year. So we are going to be taking a look at that in just a couple of minutes. Again, if you don't know that right off the top of your head, that's fine. But why we're doing this is to make sure that we understand what that goal represents in terms of what we did regarding those products and services next year. Because if I've selected hyper growth for all 5 of those products or services, well, I've got some pretty big, hairy, audacious goals. That could absolutely be achieved. I grew more than 100% this year, but it's not necessarily something that you can expect every single year. So again, hyper growth in all your categories, absolutely possible, but just make sure that as we go through this, you're really, really focusing on how you're going to achieve that, if that's what you're selecting, but otherwise just be realistic based on what you did last year versus what you're doing this year. If this is a brand new product or service, well, hyper growth, that's really what you're going to be doing, because 0 to anything is, more than 100%. So just go ahead and put a quick check mark anywhere that you absolutely know the answers. And if you need to go back and fill that in later, then that's what you can do. The below portion is going to be really important. So these are observations, beliefs, assumptions, and notes. So again, I said we're making some guesses here. We're making some, anticipations of what we would like to see. But in this section, I really want you to write down why you feel like that's going to be achievable. If there is anything that will allow you to get there that you're thinking about or seeing, maybe some assumptions about the state of the market, the state of the world, the economy, whatever really kind of backs up what you have put in here. If you don't really have anything, you should kind of ask yourself, why have I chosen these goals if I really don't have any reasons or beliefs to feel as though these are going to be possible? And again, if you don't have too much to fill in, you don't have to fill in, the entire section, but I really want you to think about, what is it that I've said I'm going to do, and why do I believe that this is possible? It may even cause you to go back and take another look at what you've actually selected, in terms of monthly recurring revenue, for instance. My assumption could be that I'm already doing X amount in monthly recurring revenue, and I would simply need X number of clients to meet that monthly recurring revenue goal that I've set for myself. That's an observation. An assumption could be that your industry is going to have a huge explosion in the market next year. So an example of that could be something like the homeschooling industry. We've seen in the past year that many parents have been kind of forced into homeschooling where they may have never actually sought that out in the past. But now they're here and they've got to buy things that homeschooling parents need to buy. So if that's your market, an assumption could be there is going to be a much higher demand for my products and services in year 2021. And that is why I believe that I can achieve these goals. Now we're going to take a look at the year 2020. So again, yesterday, we went through a bit more general information in terms of what happened in the year 2020. What did we accomplish? What were we proud of? What did we regret? Where are our opportunities? What are those things that we learned from year 2020? Now we're diving in a bit deeper and we're looking at what we actually did in terms of revenue, in terms of units, in terms of monthly recurring revenue, whatever it is that you sold and where those sales actually came from. So this is one that you guys are probably going to need to take back with you. Take a look at your data from last year. I really hope that you have a pretty good idea of this off the top of your head, because if you don't, it means that you were not paying attention throughout the year. And that's a big thing that you want to identify. So this entire process, this isn't about feeling bad for what you did in the past year or feeling overly confident that next year will be the same. It's really about understanding where you've been, realizing maybe why you've been there, and deciding what you need to do to get you to that next phase that you want to be in 2021. So same concept as before. On the left, we're writing down those products and services that we have to offer. So I've already got mine written down. I've got local marketing mastery and local agency accelerator. I've got my setup packages. I've got my consulting. I've got my agency services. And I've got my courses. So if you are keeping up with your books on a regular basis, this should be fairly clear if you take a look at them. If you have a payment processor, that's another really great place to look, because you should be able to see very easily that revenue each month, and you should be able to take a look at your customers. Hopefully you know what they bought. If you have an e-commerce business, you should be able to look at that in your backend analytics as well. But again, we may need to kind of make a few assumptions here if you don't actually have that data, and that is okay. But 2021, we don't really want to have that. We want to actually know, where did these things come from? Okay. So in terms of platforms, channels, programs, this top row, you're going to fill in what was the source of these sales. So one of them could be Facebook. One of them could be YouTube. One of them could be email. And again, this kind of goes into attribution a little bit, which can get sticky because, for instance, my Facebook ads could have produced the email subscribers for my email list. And then my email list could have actually produced those sales. But if I've done a good job of setting up my systems, I should very easily be able to track back the source of that email sale. And if you can't, you know that that's something you really need to work on in 2021. Everything that we focus on with my students, with my clients, with our, setup clients, it's really about understanding where your leads are actually coming from. What is the path that they took that led them to the sale? What did they opt in for? What did they sign up for? What did they purchase first, second, and third? So really getting a great idea of your customer value journey, hugely, hugely important. I'd love to do a challenge on the customer value journey at some point. It's a really great exercise for anyone who's never gone through it, and it really will open your eyes in a lot of ways to the steps that you're missing and where you can really tighten things up. But again, this is about 2020. Where and what have you sold this past year? So Facebook, YouTube, email, we've got networking, we've got referrals, we've got PR. Those are going to be the primary channels that I am going to list personally. You might have some different things. Maybe you go out and knock on doors. Maybe you do cold calling. Whatever it is that you do, that you did in 2020, you want to write that down. And now we simply want to identify how many sales in these different product and service categories came from these different channels. So I have a pretty good idea just off the top of my head what that looks like for me. But again, it's really, really great to go in and have a realistic idea. So we'll guess when we have to, but if we don't have to guess because the data exists, it's a much better exercise for you to go in and pull that data. That data is something that most people are completely oblivious to. And it actually is one of the main reasons that businesses don't grow as fast as they should, because they're spending money on these different channels. Maybe they're spending time on these different channels that aren't actually producing any sales. And if you're not digging in and looking at that, you may have no idea that that's what's happening. If you can see reality for what it is and say, wow, I spent a lot of hours networking in 2020, but I only got 2 sales from networking. Is that the best use of my time in 2021? So this will really open your eyes to a lot of different things that maybe you shouldn't have been doing, or maybe things you really need to beef up because you had no idea that they produced as many sales as they actually did. So let's take a minute. Let's go ahead and fill these in either with our general ideas, if that's what we have to do, and then go back and pull that actual data later. All right, we will go ahead and move on to our next section. What will you sell in 2021 and where will you sell that? Oh, actually, we missed a section real quick. So after you do this, and really, again, I want you to go in and dig into the real hard data, but below this chart, I want you to fill in what are some of the channels, platforms, programs, whatever you want to call it, that you have not leveraged in 2020, but you think that could be possible for you? So one thing that I'm just getting started on is Clubhouse. I don't know how big a part of my business that's going to be in 2021, but I do have friends that are really enjoying it. They're getting clients out of it, and they think it's a great platform for anyone who has great expertise in their market. So that's something that I plan on diving into a lot more in 2021. I am using YouTube, but it's something that we've been focused on planning and getting our plans together to really ramp that up in 2021. So organic YouTube, also focusing more on YouTube ads. And then you also could have something related to your Dream 100. So maybe you want to put that in the direct mail category. Maybe you want to put that in the networking category, or maybe you just make a category for Dream 100. That's something that I always focus on, but I really want to get a lot more dedicated to that in 2021. It's always served me very, very well. And so that's something I already know I've been extremely profitable with, and I want to leverage that quite a bit more. And then the final thing for me would be PR. We've already done quite a bit of PR, but again, it's produced a lot of sales for me. So I really want to ramp that up as well. And those are things that I'm already doing for the most part. But for me personally, I want to make note that those are the things that at the end of 2020, I'm telling myself, I really want to get quite a bit more focused, because I know that they've produced either a super high return on investment or they've produced a lot of sales. So just because something has a really high return on investment doesn't mean you've gotten a lot of sales from it. So I really want to make that clear. For instance, Dream 100 strategy. The Dream 100 strategy is focused on partnerships or sales to only the top people that you want to do business with or collaborate with. So maybe from a Dream 100, you've only gotten 1 sale. But if this is a real Dream 100 client, that 1 sale should be worth a lot to your business. So if we've only spent a small amount of money on Dream 100, maybe we've spent more time and personal effort on that, but the return on investment is huge. So don't just look at the number of units that you've sold. You also want to take a look at the value of the sales that have been produced. One thing that people really seem to overlook a lot of times is the value of the purchase from each of these channels. So for instance, maybe I'm selling something through Facebook ads and Google ads, and I've spent the same amount of money, and maybe I've gotten the exact same amount of sales from those channels, but on Facebook, I've actually brought in 5 times more revenue. So what that means is that I'm still getting the same amount of leads or sales potentially, but people are buying a lot more when they come from Facebook. So you're going to see that in a lot of different places. And until you dig into that data, you are not really going to realize it. There are several different things that cause someone to buy more. The first one would be, having an ascension plan. Let's say you really build this relationship with people on something like Facebook or Instagram, something you can't really do very well with Google Ads. Because of that relationship, people may buy quite a bit more from you in terms of volume because they trust you or they know more about what you do or you talk more about what you sell versus Google Ads where someone's searching for something specific, they find it, they buy it, and they don't really realize all these other things that they could buy from you. So really, really, really want to make sure that you guys understand that. The trust factor, the exposure factor of what you're selling, that's going to be a big one. The second one could be your offer. Are you presenting different offers on these different channels? Because if you are, you want to pay attention to that. The right offer should cause people to spend more. Obviously, continuing to give them something of, equal or greater value than what they're spending, but your offer is important. So for instance, I had a setup client who does e-commerce. She sells body products. So when we first started this process, she was selling just these individual body products. She had worked with an agency before and they were, setting her up to sell like a bottle of lotion. Okay. So a bottle of lotion is like $16. So what we did was we created an offer, which was a gift package. Okay. So these packages have 5 or 6 products in them and they're sold for one price, but the price is $65. So instead of getting a $16 sale, she was getting a $65 sale, same type of advertising, 2 different offers, extremely different in the volume, the revenue that's produced. So it could be the exact same number of sales, but this one is worth 5 times more. So something I want you guys to pay attention to. All right, now, where and what will you sell? Products, services, and offers, that's something I want you to do a little bit differently in this sheet. I want you to really think about your offers more than just the products and services that you sold in 2020. Offers are one of the single most important pieces of marketing. And if you have a bad offer, that could be the reason that you did not have the year that you wanted to have in 2020. So this is a completely different conversation that we cannot dive into. If you guys do want to watch a training on offers, I have one on my YouTube channel. It's about all the different types of offers, the way you can package them, what's best for different types of businesses. So it's very in-depth. Check it out on my YouTube. It's Allie Bloyd Media. You can find me pretty easily. And it's one of my more recent videos. So you'll be able to find that fairly quickly. I think it's right there on my homepage. So check that out if you do not fully understand offers. If you do understand offers, I want you to write down the offers that you've been thinking about for 2021. What are those offers that have a higher value? What are those offers that give your potential customers or clients what they actually need in the easiest, most convenient way? So if you just have kind of this bare minimum knowledge of offers, you don't have to fill this all in right now. You might want to take a look at that video and then come back to this, but you could put your general ideas and then just revisit this later. So I already have my offers. And again, I'm going to list those same exact things that I've been talking about. I do actually have some additional offers that are kind of industry specific for different groups and different people, but I'm going to leave those out right now because those are primarily all going to be sold through one single channel. So we'll say local marketing mastery and local agency accelerator. We've got setup, consulting, agency, and courses. Then we've got our platforms, channels, and programs again. So this time we are not writing down what we did. We're writing down what we want to do. So what are those platforms, channels, programs that you listed on that 2020 sheet under the channels that you could be leveraging, but you're not. And maybe it's those top producing channels from 2020. We don't want to do away with things that are working really well, but we also want to make sure that we are adding in those things that are really missing from that 2020 plan. So Facebook ads will continue to be a big part of my marketing. Dream 100 is also going in, and that also ties into networking for me. So I'm just going to leave it as Dream 100. YouTube/YouTube ads. That's going to be another one. I'm going to do referrals again, PR, and then I'm going to put down Clubhouse. Again, I don't know what the result of Clubhouse will be for my business. I do know that based on evidence of people that I know, there's great potential there. So I'm going to give it some assumptions. Again, assumptions are fine as long as we acknowledge that they are not yet reality and that we are making an assumption and that we could be way off, but we're doing our very best. So then I want you to go ahead and fill in based on the unit or revenue or subscription goal that you originally selected. And again, you don't have to choose just one, but I would encourage you to focus on just one because that is going to help you streamline the rest of this process as we go through. So select that main goal that you want to focus on. Again, all of them really should be increasing revenue at the end of the day, but maybe you simply want to have a revenue goal, and that's fine. And then I want you to fill in where you see those sales in 2021. How many do you anticipate based on your original goals that these sales are going to come from? So we've already got what our main goals are. We've already got what we did last year, and then we've got what we plan to do this year based on different channels. So I'm going to go ahead and plug these in. Again, try and make them add up to those goals that we set right here. So take a minute and do that. All right, so now that you have all of that information together, you are well on your way to creating your local marketing strategy or your local marketing plan. So we've got 3 more days to go, trying to break this down into easy to consume chunks and easy to implement steps. You could take an entire day to do all of this, or you could follow along with me and you can have it done over the course of 5 days, 30 to 45 minutes a day. So what you have right now should be fairly solid. I do want you to go ahead and fill in those observations, beliefs, and assumptions below based on what you know from 2020, and then why you thought that these new platforms or channels would help you get where you want to go. So for instance, on Clubhouse, one of my assumptions is it will work well for me because I have an expertise that I can share, and I know others in my same exact field who have done well on the platform. Does that mean it's going to come to fruition? Maybe not, but that's my assumption, and that's why I'm making that assumption. So again, let's really get our thoughts clear on why we're making the choices and the decisions that we are making. Because again, if we do this at the end of next year, we want to be able to look back and say, okay, that was my thought process. And yes, that was accurate, or no, that was not accurate. And I'm not going to think that way in the future. So this is not something that we're just going to sit away in a corner and never look at again. We're actually really going to use it over the course of the year. And then we're going to revisit this next year and use it to build our future plans. This is something you should be doing every year and then also doing every quarter. So we're going to cover the quarterly plan over the course of the week so that you have a really clear path for the first 3 months. If you can get those first 3 months under control, off with a lot of momentum and excitement, it will help propel you through the rest of the year. So I hope you guys have enjoyed this today. Again, if you need these documents, go into the comments. There's a link to a Google Drive folder. You can download these and print them out, take the concepts, write them on your own paper. I don't really care what it is. I just want you to actually do them. So if you have questions, if you have comments, feel free to drop them below. And I really hope to see you tomorrow at 5 for day 3 of the challenge. Hope you guys have a great night. See you soon.